Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about a determined single mom who had to call the cops on her neighbor's kids to protect her beloved garden. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Called the cops on my neighbor's kids. I know this sounds bad, but hear me out first before making a judgment. I, 25-year-old female, am a single mom to my son, 8-year-old male. After busting for years, I was able to buy an objective house in a low-income area. It's not the best house. I'm having to do quite a bit of work on it, but it's safe and it's home. One of the things that I've done to make it a tad bit better is gardening. It doesn't take up the entire yard, just a garden bed near my porch and another around a tree. I'm hoping to eventually put in a few more around the house, but it's expensive and time-consuming. I'm proud of what I've accomplished so far. My neighbor, Lisa, is a single mom of 6 kids. Her 3 youngest, 8-year-old male, 7-year-old male, and 4-year-old female, are constantly at my house playing with my son. This isn't a problem for me because I do have to get on them quite often. These kids are wild. I feel like I'm constantly having to talk to Lisa about their behavior. For the past month, I've talked to her almost daily about the kids being in my garden. Watching them doesn't help, as they even come over when me or my son is home to play in my yard. I've tried to fix this by putting up anything my son has outside, bikes, balls, taking the swings off the swing set, etc. Nothing stops them. They've taken to playing in the garden beds and bringing shovels to dig. I've started getting mad and told Lisa under no circumstances are they allowed in my yard when I'm not home, and they are not allowed in my garden at any time. Finally, this came to a head when I got home 2 days ago. My garden was wrecked. All of my plants were dug up and destroyed. The barrier around the beds were torn apart. My little garden decorations were smashed and drawn on, and there were so many holes and toys. I was pissed. I went over to Lisa's and admittedly yelled at her about her kids. She yelled back that they were kids and I couldn't expect to have a garden with kids around. I demanded payment for the damage, and she told me to get off her property. I went home and called the police to report the damage. The cops didn't do much, but did tell Lisa that her family was not to come on my property again. I was ranting to my friends about this, and while they do agree that it was wrong, they think I took it way too far by calling the cops on such young kids. They think I might have ruined my son's chances at a friend. My son's happy about it, though, because he was starting to realize the 2 older of the 3 were using him for his cool stuff. It's easy to judge, but when you've invested so much in something you care about, it's only natural to defend it fiercely. What do you all think? Was she right to call the cops, or did she go too far? And our second story. Try to sneak a foreclosure? Okay. For anyone who's ever served on an HOA board, you know that most of the violations, accounting, and general management of an HOA, especially with a neighborhood the size of I run, is handled by a property management company. This is mainly because it'd be too expensive and biased to have someone who lives in the community handle all these duties alone. A dirty little secret of these companies, however, that many of these companies will make their prices cheaper by secretly passing fining policies on to homeowners that the board has no control over. Hence today's story. About a month ago, we were conducting a regular HOA meeting. We've been having them fairly often to keep our board management company rep and homeowners in sync since I've been hearing complaints of bad behavior from the management company. This particular meeting, however, things almost got out of control. As soon as we finished all our checklist items, we asked homeowners about any questions. A couple stood up, and I saw the man holding a paper with a shaking hand, which I quickly learned was due to his anger. Over the next 10 minutes, he explained how he was here to plead his case for the board not to foreclose on his house, especially since he'd been making payments on a large debt for a very long time. Without going into too many details, the discussion got extremely heated because our management company had told us not to get involved since this homeowner had already been involved with our lawyers. After lots of arguing, the meeting was finally over. I left totally confused because I knew that the homeowner was in good standing, and if he was willing to pay, which the record showed he had called to do so, why couldn't he? I'd been told by my property manager to not take any action, and I decided to call BS. I called the legal firm representing the board, which I was told not to do, even though they represent us. After talking with the firm for an hour, I found out that the management company had not allowed this homeowner to pay his fines and dues because of a petty procedural technicality, and that instead they were slapping fines on him like there was no tomorrow. I quickly told the lawyer to offer to settle his balance with no fines, and the issue was resolved the next day. I spent more time looking into our management company and found out that they would underbid management contract costs and supplement them by adding in their own fines onto the homeowner collections without the board's approval. This is a technicality in the fining process, and while it's not illegal, it's highly unethical and disputable because it encourages the management company to fine and escalate non-issues since to make more money. I honestly felt horrendous because I had no idea, because it's a one-line clause in the contract. I also received a call from our community manager urging us to stop waiving fines since it sets a bad example. That really sent me over the edge. Livid with this phone call and new knowledge about fines, I found a new management company and terminated our contract immediately. In addition, I believe I found a loophole where all of the charges unfairly pressed against homeowners will not be recouped by the company, and the HOA cannot be liable for them since they're a pass-through. During the issue with the property investment company, see other post, I met about a dozen other HOA board members in my area and discovered about 6 of them are using the same company and even community manager. I urged them to look into the same issue, and they soon discovered the horrors for themselves. Sounds like all of them will be terminating their contracts too. One of the other association presidents actually knows state council for HOA rules, and they're now working with them to make this practice illegal. If it passes, this entire company would go under. While I'm not holding my breath, I'm certainly following the legal proceedings closely and have even offered to testify before a committee why this rule is needed. As for the community manager, the person helping our community, they've lost over half of their contracts, and their manager came begging for me to stay. They even offered to stop the fining policy in the most corporate talk way possible, where they basically gave themselves plausible deniability if they do it again. I told him that his property manager deserved what she had coming to her and that her policies were stone cold terrible. He tried to reply, but I just hung up. I was too angry. Watch these management companies closely. They're almost all seriously snakes in the grass waiting to screw over board members and community members. And our next story. Neighbor trespassing, threatening us. My neighbors have a very small triangle lot next to our land. Our property essentially backs up to his deck, and our property is heavily wooded. Tons of trees. A while back, he complained that some trees were at risk of falling on his garage. We agreed that 5 of the trees were risky, so we had them cut down, spent $2,000. We thought that was the end of it. He then proceeded to remove our flag markers from our survey, but we let it slide because we knew where the irons were. Recently, he trespassed onto our property and put tape on about 20 trees. Our trees far from his property. He texted us and said the trees he taped were dangerous, diseased, leaning, or dead. None of these trees are anywhere close to a location that could cause damage. He essentially thinks they're ugly. We asked him if he was willing to have an arborist evaluate them. He said no. They're clearly dying and we need to cut them down. We said we would not cut down the trees. We argued via text, and his text became more and more aggressive. We decided to just ignore him and remove the tape. He took it upon himself to start cutting up a massive tree that fell on our property because he was tired of looking at it. He's trying to use it against us, saying, "Look how much work I'm putting you in and you're doing nothing and we're in our 70s. But dude, it's our land. We have no trespassing signs, but he doesn't care. He's now gotten an estimate from a tree removal company for all the flagged trees, is complaining about us removing the tape, so he put up more, and is telling us we have to handle this ASAP. He's also cut down many trees on a neighboring property and put a fire pit on the neighbor's land. They wouldn't know because they're 500 feet in the woods. I'm concerned he's going to start claiming our land as his own, and he did with the neighbors, and I'm concerned he's going to retaliate somehow. That's why we're not being more assertive. He's complained about our dogs barking, and I'm worried about him poisoning our dogs. Update. Looks like I need a fence, guys. I also reported him to the police for trespassing and damaging my property. Sent a letter demanding that he stop trespassing and damaging my property or I'll sue him. Sent the police a copy of the video footage of him trespassing and damaging my property while I was filing a report. And our last story. Tenant is destroying my house. Tenants were signed on shortly before the start of the COVID pandemic, paid only a couple months' rent after the initial deposit, and then stopped paying. This roughly coincided with the start of the eviction restrictions, so there was not much we could do at the time except wait it out. On Friday, a friend of mine messaged me to report that they drive by my old place and one of the windows was broken. No attempts at reaching the tenants either by phone or in person could be made, so I escalated the matter to the police, and they told me to file for eviction. Gave me a number to call the county office, but this was late in the day and they're closed until Monday, with a message saying they have limited staff and hours. The situation has now escalated severely over the weekend. The police have been out there 6 times, but all they do is tell me this is a civil matter. They document the damage but can't get in touch with the tenants, so just leave. Every time I or the police are there, there's no sign of anyone at the property. But every time I drive by, there's more damage. The damage is very severe. By Saturday night, they'd broken every exterior window in my house. Today, they've spent the day gouging up the wood on the porch and have begun to pull off pieces of the siding and downspouts. There's no visibility into the windows as there are things put up against them on every side, so I could only fear what the inside now looks like. The police have been called each time to document new damage, but the report is the same each time, that I need to get an eviction order before they can do anything. And I have to wait until Monday, and then 30 days. This I do not understand. How can a rental agreement give these people the legal right to destroy my property that belongs to me? How can this not be a crime? I would never have rented out my house if I had known it would not be a crime to completely destroy it. I was informed shortly ago that I can enter with 24 hours notice, so I've sent a friend to physically post and photograph this notice, so I should be able to legally enter. And I think early in the day on Tuesday, but this may be too late, and I don't think I'll be able to, as deadbolts have been installed in both doors, damaging both doors that are not mine and I do not have keys. I posted the notice as to expedite the process if I need it, but I don't know how I will get in or what I could try to do other than document more damage, and am assuming/hoping police can accompany me in this, as I don't know if it would be safe to enter alone. By the time the eviction passes, I fear there may be no house left to evict them from. I'm going to lose my entire investment. I was depending on being able to move back to my home next year, but soon I'll have nothing. Update. My attorney filed for an emergency court hearing presenting all the documented evidence of the extensive damage and the tenant's complete disregard for the property. On Tuesday, with the 24-hour notice legally posted, I attempted to enter the property, accompanied by the police for my safety. The deadbolts prevented entry, but the court recognized the urgency and granted an expedited eviction order, allowing us to gain access to the property. The police escorted me and a locksmith to the house, and we documented all the damage. The court proceedings moved swiftly, and given the overwhelming evidence, the judge ruled in my favor. The tenants were held accountable for the destruction and unpaid rent, and a garnishment order was issued against their future wages to recover the costs of repairs. With the legal matters settled, I focused on restoring my home. The contractor repaired the damage, and with the support of friends and family, my home was restored to its former glory. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.